A big revelation in Final Fantasy VIII happens as the party members realize they were all in the same orphanage as kids, except for Rinoa. But what if we took one of those orphans away? How incredibly different would the world of Final Fantasy VIII be? Before looking at Squall, we'll have to take a look at his family's history. Everything in the game's past would happen as it does, with Alone being kidnapped and Laguna rushing to Esthar on a rescue mission. What would be quite different though would be that Squall's mother, Rain, would not die. Canonically, Laguna sends Alone back to Windhill alone, promising to follow once he helped the Astarians rebuild. Alone would arrive in Windhill before Rain and Laguna's baby was born, but Rain would die soon thereafter, with the people of Windhill sending both Alone and Squall to Edea's orphanage. Laguna would be woefully unaware of all of this and become engrossed in his work as Esthar's president. But what if Rain never died? Rain's fatal condition is never revealed, but we can simply assume it never existed in this alternate reality in the first place. So, rewind to Alone coming to Windhill, and Squall is born. Alone would explain what Laguna had told her. Rain would likely spend some time, perhaps even a few years, waiting for Laguna and raising Alone and Squall in Windhill. Eventually, Rain would wisen up to the fact that Laguna probably has become lost in the effort to build Esthar and would move to Esthar with the kids. They would be reunited with Laguna, who would be a bit embarrassed and probably get quite the berating from Rain. They would live happily ever after in the utopian Esthar. Or would they? Well, yes, at least for a quite long time. And quite interestingly, Squall would probably have grown up to be very different. The brooding loner who wanted to close himself from others wouldn't have manifested, and instead Squall would have likely ended up a bit more like his father, probably with less dorkiness. But what about the rest of the world? A key moment in Final Fantasy VIII establishes a time loop. In the game, after the final battle, Squall and a dying Ultimecia emerge out of the time compression at Edea's orphanage. Ultimecia bestows her sorceress powers on Edea, who was already a sorceress, so now Edea was a sorceresser? And Squall breaks every time travel rule by telling Edea that she was going to create Garden and Seed to defeat a sorceress. But here's the big but. Since Squall never ends up at the orphanage, none of the original game's timeline happens, so this has a massive cascading effect on the world of Final Fantasy VIII. Edea never gets the idea for Garden and Seed from Squall, who got it from Edea, who got it from Squall, who got it from... oh no, I've gone cross-eyed. Anyway, Seed is never formed, and the rest of Edea's orphans never get assigned to gardens to be educated as soldiers. Who knows what their futures hold? Perhaps Irvine and Selphie form a train-themed band. Regardless, their fate is not that important in the larger scheme. The succession of magic would still continue on in Final Fantasy VIII, with Edea passing her powers on to someone at the end of her days. The powers would be passed all the way down to Ultimecia. Since Seed doesn't exist, Ultimecia would not have any fear of them or a fated encounter with one of them. Regardless, to keep things interesting, we can assume Ultimecia still wants to achieve time compression and as such uses the junction machine alone to take herself back in time to take possession of Edea. Ultimecia would still need to find Alone, and as such would likely follow the canonical route of amassing power in Galbadia. In fact, things would likely follow a similar path as the original game, with one major difference. There would be no Seed to oppose Ultimecia. Unopposed, Ultimecia would find Alone in Esthar, and likely after a second Sorceress War, would achieve her objective. Alone would be captured and would be used by Ultimecia to achieve time compression. Game over. The end. But at least Alone's dream of living a peaceful life with her adopted family would become true, and Squall wouldn't grow up to be such an angsty teen. This all is of course just my interpretation of how events would play out. What do you think? Do you think Idea would still come up with Seed and Garden? Do you think Ultimecia would succeed? Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.